Hi, welcome back to my channel. I promised that later I would have a video on emotions and feelings, and here we are. So when we talk about feelings, people think of two things. They either think of sensations that happen in the body or emotions that happen in the mind. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the difference between the two, and we're going to start with sensations. So sensations happen in the body. Um, they include being tired, cold, achy, listless, things like that. So emotions are things like lonely, excited, happy, frightened, that happen in the mind. But they are intrinsically linked together. And we're going to talk a little bit about that link, okay? So I made a few slides. And we're going to share the screen. Okay, anger. So when I feel anger, I experience an increased blood pressure, increased pulse rate. My body temperature rises, might feel hot. Sometimes the face flushes and the muscles tense in preparation for action. So some people might say, he made me so mad, man. I was so hot. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the body temperature rising when we're angry. Frightened. When I'm frightened, I experience an increased pulse rate. My eyes are wide open and I'm very alert. Often, my body temperature goes down instead of up, hence the cold sweat some people have when they experience fear. The blood flow is diverted from the organs to the large muscles, which prepares them to flee if they need to. Sometimes the loss of organ control results in peeing your pants, pooping your pants, depending on the situation and your age and your control of your organs. So muscles tense for fight or flight, and sometimes people are frozen with fear, or other times they are shaking due to muscle tension. So you see the old emoji picture, people their biting their fingernails and shaking. And that is what we look at with muscle tension making us shake in fear. Or maybe that's just in the movies. Sadness. When someone feels sad, their pulse rate goes down. There is reduced blood pressure and a feeling of tiredness or listlessness. There is usually reduced anxiety reduced activity. And sometimes the posture is slumped and the eyes are downcast. We see in our little dude right here, his eyes are definitely downcast and his posture is slumped. Poor little fella. Okay. Excitement. When we're excited, there's less muscle tension, and sometimes we feel very energetic. Our posture is upright, our head is held high, and the pulse rate increases. So you might have noticed some similarities in a lot of these sensations, which is why sometimes it's difficult to figure out what you're feeling because the sensations are so similar. Some people have a very good emotional vocabulary, and other people don't have quite as good of an emotional vocabulary. So we're going to look here at some common emotions. This is not an extensive list, but it is a list of those I could throw together really quickly off the top of my head. And I put them in alphabetical order because why wouldn't I? So you'll see they go from affectionate down to where I stopped at terrific. And this is not all inclusive. There are many other emotions, but these are the ones I came up with right off the top of my head. So what I often do with people if we're trying to assess or build an emotional vocabulary is I'll take those words and put them each on one 3x5 card and give them a stack. Then I ask them to separate those words into categories: mad, sad, glad, and scared. So once they have each group separated, I have them take, let's say, the mad group and have them put them in line from the lowest, least mad emotion to the highest, most mad emotion to look at the degree of the intensity of the emotion. So we would have like irked at the bottom and enraged at the top. So that's how that would go. And they would do that for each of the 4 categories. And then if we have questions about why they put something where it is, we would talk about that. One thing I've noticed working with men is that some words mean different things to them than they do to women. One emotion word that some may call it a cuss word, so I apologize, but pissed off. When men say they're pissed off, that is usually a very intense emotion of anger. And sometimes women will say, yeah, I got pissed off, but I'm okay now, which is very much of a lower level of irritation. So be aware that different words mean different things to different people. And oftentimes, as that is along gender lines. So here is just an example of how I divided them into categories. So we're going to just share the screen by category, where I have all the mad words, all the glad words, all the sad words, and all the scared words. So if you had a different categorization of those words, you could leave it down in the comments and it'll give me good feedback. Okay. So the other thing we look at is what causes emotion, and that is definitely our thoughts. So earlier today on Twitter, I was having a conversation with someone, and they said that most drug addiction was caused by trauma and poverty. Well, trauma, I'll agree with you. Trauma is a big precipitator of addiction because addiction is caused by our unidentified and unmanaged emotions. So, but poverty, no, I'm not going to buy that one. Poverty does not cause addiction. In fact, I know many people who were brought up in poverty and they have never used drugs. So it is a choice, and it doesn't make you use drugs and it doesn't make you sell drugs. What it sometimes does to you is that it makes you see limited options. And if you see limited options, then you might be more tempted to engage in criminal activity because you don't see the options that may be right in front of you. So that's what spurred my emotional rant earlier. What kind of thoughts cause what kind of emotions? So if I'm going to be using some material from the Feeling Good Handbook that I ran across, and when we talk about sadness and depression, it's because you think that you've had a loss, an emotional rejection, or a failure. You're not achieving the things you think you should be achieving. So you feel depressed or you feel sad. Guilt and shame. So when I do something that I think is wrong, I feel guilty, unless I'm a psychopath, in which case I might not. Um, but guilt is a thought that you've done something wrong. Shame tends to be more socially implied. I feel shame because I don't want others to know that I did what I did that I don't approve of, and they probably wouldn't either. So I would lose face. Sometimes we look at shame at guilt as I did something wrong, and shame as I am something wrong. So that's kind of how we look at those. Anxiety, fear, worry. I think that only bad things are going to happen. I exaggerate. What if this chest pain is the start of a heart attack? What if the plane crashes? Things like that cause me to worry. When we use the word anxious in psychological terms, we mean anxiety. So we mean intense worry, probably to the point where it interferes with our day worry, anxiety. So not like anticipation anxiety. So that's the difference there. Inferiority, I can't do public speaking as well as he does. I'm not as handsome or skilled as someone else, and therefore I feel inadequate. Loneliness is when you think that you'll be alone forever. You're isolated. You can't do anything about being with people you love. You may feel lonely. Hopelessness and discouragement. If I think things are bad, but not just that they're bad, but they're going to always be bad, and there's no way to make them better, I would feel hopeless and discouraged. So our emotions are very logical. What we think generates an emotion, and that emotion will motivate us for a behavior. Let's look at some thoughts and the likely emotions that might result. Okay. I don't like giving blood, so I won't go to my medical appointment. Do I feel A, confident, B, scared, or C, bored? So if I don't want to do something and I'm avoiding it, I'm probably feeling B, scared. Okay. I always beat this guy at chess. This is an easy win for me. Do I feel confident, aggressive, or judgmental? I probably feel A, confident. I should have kept my promise instead of blowing it off. If I think that, will I feel A, sad, B, guilty, or C, worthless? Probably I would feel B, guilty. I haven't seen my children in years, and I would love to hug and kiss them. Do I feel A, lonely, B, thoughtful, or C, guilty? Probably lonely. Okay. I know when I stand up to give this speech, my mind will go blank and I will make no sense. Do I feel A, anxious, B, confused, or C, depressed? Probably A, anxious. This guy lifts a lot of weight and is probably a lot stronger than I am. I don't know if I want to work out with him. I feel A, shocked, B, scared, or C, embarrassed. Probably C, embarrassed. I wanted to play baseball today, but the rain made it too muddy. Do I feel A, embarrassed, B, miserable, or C, disappointed? Probably C, disappointed, because I wanted to do something and I can't do it now. Okay. It has been years since I've seen my children, and they have grown up without me. I feel A, shocked, B, grieved, or C, sad. You can argue between B and C there, but I'm going to say C because it's not hopeless. I used to be able to make contact with them. If I was hopeless, like someone died, then I would feel grieved, but definitely sad. I've played basketball for years and I can hold my own with most people. It just seems to come naturally to me. Do I feel A, angry, B, confident, or C, optimistic? And I'm going to say confident. So if you're wondering why the answer to that wasn't optimistic, is because it's not forward thinking, it's current thinking. I can hold my own. It just comes naturally to me. So it's in the present, not the future. I've been incarcerated a long time and so much has changed in the world. I wonder if I can adapt. Do I feel A, shy, B, anxious, or C, lonely? And if you're a normal person, you probably feel B, anxious. Okay. Running 12 laps is a lot, but I'm going to try one lap at a time. Do I feel determined, overwhelmed, or discouraged? Based on this last part of the thought, but I'm going to try one lap at a time, I would say I would feel determined. So hopefully that helped. Let's turn those off. How do we turn them off? Turn on, hide the banners. There we go. So there's that. So that's what I have for you today. Just talking about how emotions are logical, even though we tend to think that they're not, and that we can change them if we don't like them just by changing what we think. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.